Hello, I'm Paul. A viewer that goes by the name Eleutherarch left this comment for me under my recent Chopin Berceuse recording. I have got this piece in my fingers but could use some help with keeping the little ascending flourishes light and delicate in bars 43-44, the ones born out of the trills. Do you have any advice? My first thought was to reply to Eleutherarch by posting a short video Q&A on just bars 43 and 44, then got the idea to add a few more practice suggestions for the whole of the Berceuse while I was at it, in case it might help and encourage others looking to play the piece too. I've time-coded just bars 43-44 in the video description. Now, a bit of history. Chopin wrote the Berceuse between 1843 and 1844 and originally titled the work Variations in D flat. Chopin didn't compose the work all at once. It was begun at the country estate outside Paris of the writer Georges Sand. Chopin's first draft was given to the singer Pauline Viardot, whose young daughter Louisette was also staying at the chateau during that time while her mother was away giving concerts. Some say the Berceuse was inspired by Louisette. Some of the variations are harder to play than others. There's one in particular I find extremely tricky to play, but you may not find it so hard, of course, if you love the melody and gentle mood of the Berceuse, but feel the work as a whole is a bit beyond you. For the time being, I've linked to two simplified versions in the video description. They are both very beautiful to play too. The Berceuse theme is similar to one of Chopin's mother's favourite Polish songs, which she used to sing to Chopin when she was young. I can't pronounce the Polish title, but it translates as "The moon has risen, the dogs are asleep." This song's melody also features in one of Chopin's rare works for piano and orchestra, the Fantasy on Polish Airs, Opus 13. Here's a snippet. As mentioned, the lullaby was originally conceived as a set of variations. These variations were written over an ostinato bass. An ostinato bass is just a musical phrase that keeps repeating, which you can hear on its own in the first two bars. If we put interpretation and dynamics aside, there are two other considerations. Firstly, the time signature is 6/8, so we need to have a rhythmical feel for this meter. We can do this by slightly prolonging the first note of each bar, very subtly, fractions of a second, just so the listener gets the swing of it without it being too obvious. I'll exaggerate it so you can hear clearly what I mean, but you don't have to do it anywhere near as much as this, of course. Secondly, the Berceuse has very long phrases. If we add too much expressive rubato along the way, which can be a temptation, we unintentionally interrupt the steady rhythmical flow and make the Berceuse sound strangely disjointed or interrupted rather than flowing along like the rhythmical rocking of a cradle until the lullaby gently melts into the silence of a child's peaceful sleep. Chopin began the work as a set of variations, and for practical practice purposes I've divided the piece into sections which we'll now look at together. Let's start with what I'll call practice section 1, bars 1 to 12. I don't hold on to the beat note as long as the previous example. These things are very subtle after all. I haven't added the score above the keyboard in this video, as I think it's best if you wish to use this tutorial to follow with your own addition. In section 2, Chopin introduces a secondary voice. In section 3, we need to voice the melody, which you can do as usual by applying a bit more purposeful striking pressure and downward speed on the melody note with the harder part of your fingertip. That's to say, more towards the fingernail as opposed to the soft part of the under fingertip for the non-voiced notes. The notes to voice are somewhat hidden in the score as they are printed really small. They are the tiny bottom notes in the accaciaturas up until bar 18, where they become the top notes. In section 4, the berceuse starts to gather momentum. Sometimes our fingers can get muddled up somewhere along the line in intricate passages such as this, so I recommend you practice rhythmically in order to keep things together in performance. That's to say, accent the first note of each group, like this. Notice the way section 5 is slurred in groups of 2, which feels slightly counterintuitive, especially in the triplets. The way we can get this slurred effect, similar to the way thirds are bowed on the violin, is to play the first third, then the second third without releasing the first, then release both thirds and repeat all the way down. To play section 6 smoothly, I strongly recommend, if you haven't already done so, learning the chromatic double third scale. When they come along in music, as they do from time to time, if you know them confidently, you won't even think twice about playing them. At least they won't hold back the rest of the piece. In section 7, we arrive at one of the trickiest parts of the piece. That said, it might just be tricky for me. You might not find it so. But if you do, I'd like to offer a few tips to make it easier. Chopin often uses pivot notes to reach confidently between unusually large stretches. The trick here in the Berceuse, like in so many other pieces with similar difficulties, is not to let your hand lift off from the keys while making the leap. If you do, you're not sure to land on the intended note cleanly. In this section, there are pivot notes everywhere. If you practice finding and holding onto the pivot notes as your hand swings left and right, you'll get through this section with comparative ease and security. I'll play this section very slowly and I hope you'll be able to see what I mean. In section 8, we have a chromatic scale down. The variation here is there's a different pattern to the thirds. The grouping is 2 repeated, then 1, all the way down. You can do a very elaborate exercise in finger swapping if you wish. I much prefer to repeat the thirds with the same fingers. The most important thing to observe is the slurs between the thirds, so you can lean into the third that coincides with the note in the left hand. The other thirds you can play in a very relaxed way. A flat is a note that features prominently throughout the Berceuse. In section 9, we give a little emphasis to each A flat at the beginning of each group of 3. Why not try to make 2 distinct voices between the A flats and the thirds as if they were singing together? Play section 10 with a very light hand. Just trigger the notes by hovering above them without going heavily all the way down to the key bed. In section 11, pay attention to voice each A flat in bar 37, then voice the upper notes in bar 38. Section 12 and 13 scintillate with silvery light when played at a fast tempo. These 2 practice sections are really connected as one, but I decided to split them so you can take some time and concentrate on the voicing and fingering of both parts separately. There's a number of accents to bring out, as selected top notes descend in a scale as the harmony changes. If you have large hands, you can choose a fingering which makes these sections very comfortable to play. I confess when playing I just use whatever fingers suggest themselves in the moment. I rarely pencil in fingering on a score, but some fine fingering suggestions are very helpful. So for average and small hands, I suggest a fingering something like this. You can change whatever notes you wish, of course, to suit what comes most naturally to you. Both these sections need to be played with a light touch and a flexible wrist. Now we come to section 14, bars 43 and 44 requested by Eleuthère Arch in his comment. Looking at the score at first sight, these two bars look confusing, especially compared to the rest of the Berceuse, all written out clearly without any rhythmical ambiguity. Bars 43-44 look almost formless, as if they were a transcription of a free improvisation. But looking more closely at bar 44, you can see the rhythm in triplets can be practiced slowly and strictly until the whole section takes on the natural fluency that comes about with practice, time and familiarity. I suggest at first you practice rhythmically, something like this. Here are how both hands fit together. Accent the right hand notes rhythmically, indicated with red lines. Section 15 is the last section with quick, intricate fingerwork. If we play this section lightly at a very fast tempo, the follow-on section 16 will feel even more peaceful by the contrast of opposites. In the final practice section 16, the right hand gently meanders and twists up and down as the hand that rocks the cradle gradually loses momentum, seeing their child is falling asleep. In the closing bars, we play as gently as we can to give the impression of total calm for a silent, peaceful sleep. Watch out for the fingering in bars 55 to 57. It's a little unusual if you aim to hold on to the C flats in the right hand. The sheet music featured in this video is the Gordowski edition, which is public domain and free to download from the IMSLP music library. I've added the link in the video description. If you are a parent and play the piano, this wonderful lullaby by Chopin will no doubt have particular meaning for you. If not a parent, perhaps the gentle mood and atmosphere as you play might feel strangely comforting. After all, although you might not remember it clearly, you were certainly rocked to sleep in your early years with love. And as you closed your eyes to your parents gazing down, you were the most beautiful child in the world. I hope you found this video useful. Good luck with your practice and greetings to you wherever you are from all the Bartons in Thailand.